Karen Whitfield's glossy French-tipped nails shook slightly as she ripped open the padded envelope she'd just swiped from my front steps. Hidden in her garage, the door cracked just enough to keep an eye on the street. She wore her trademark, smug grin, the same one that had become infamous across Willowbrook Estates, but that grin vanished the moment she looked inside. Her expression twisted in horror as a blinking red light greeted her from the palm of her hand, alongside a government-issued card that read, in no uncertain terms, "Property of the U.S. government. Tampering is a federal offense. Maximum penalty, 10 years imprisonment. My name is Marcus Chen. I'd only been living in this HOA-controlled suburban trap for 3 months. As a cybersecurity contractor for federal agencies, I worked odd hours from home and thought this quiet neighborhood would help me focus on sensitive projects. What I didn't anticipate was that my biggest security risk would be a nosy neighbor. Enter Karen Whitfield, the unelected monarch of our cul-de-sac and the self-imposed enforcer of the HOA rulebook, wielding it like a weapon wrapped in passive-aggressive emails and condescending flyers. From the moment I moved in, Karen decided I didn't belong. Maybe it was because I kept my blinds closed, or because I received packages at all hours. Or maybe she just needed a new target after she ran off the last resident who committed the cardinal sin of painting their door non-compliant taupe. At first, her interference was petty. She'd pause outside my windows during her daily Pomeranian parade 6 laps a day, minimum. Then came violation letters for nonsense infractions. My lawn allegedly too tall by a fraction of an inch. My bin left out for a whopping 45 seconds past pickup. But once my government shipments became more frequent, her mild paranoia turned into full-on surveillance. Karen began photographing every delivery, cataloging arrival times, even taking down license plates. According to my neighbor Tom, who attended HOA meetings just for the comedy, she'd convinced half the board that I was running a drug ring or worse. She claimed my boxers were suspiciously weighty and the drivers looked scared. Honestly, they probably were. Things escalated when she began intercepting drivers, cornering them with invasive questions. One poor upsky told me she followed him all the way back to his truck, demanding to see the shipping label. That was my breaking point. I reported the pattern to my federal liaison, Agent Sarah Coleman, during a routine security update. She listened carefully, then leaned in with interest. What I saw as harassment, she saw as an opportunity. The agency had been developing a program to test mail security in residential areas. My situation with Karen was perfect. The plan was simple. For 2 weeks, I'd receive fake packages embedded with harmless tracking tech and tamper-proof seals. If someone opened them, they'd trigger a silent alert to the Postal Inspection Service. I agreed, not just out of duty, but to finally put an end to Karen's obsession. The deliveries began, and predictably, so did Karen's intensified watch. She even installed a surveillance camera pointed at my porch, which hilariously violated her own HOA rulebook. She texted me constantly about unattended deliveries, urging I collect them for everyone's safety. She was getting bolder. So I set the trap. I left one package out a little longer, just enough for Karen to take the bait. It was a Thursday, during her weekly HOA meeting. I watched the whole thing unfold from my high-res indoor security cameras. At 2:15 p.m., Karen crept across my lawn, looking around like a bad sitcom villain. Then boom, she grabbed the box and scurried back into her garage. I messaged Agent Coleman with one line. Fish took the bait. Inside her garage, she probably thought she was being clever. What she didn't know was that the second she broke that seal, multiple agencies were alerted. The device inside not only began transmitting her exact GPS location, but also logged the time, temperature, and sequence of handling. Federal systems lit up like a Christmas tree. 15 minutes later, unmarked black SUVs started rolling down our street. No sirens, just silent precision. From my window, I saw Karen finally step outside, confusion on her face. Her eyes scanned the street as more and more vehicles appeared, each one sporting a government license plate. Then her phone rang. I couldn't hear everything, but I could tell from her voice that she was panicking. The knock came at 3 p.m., firm and unmistakable. This wasn't a friendly neighborhood visit. It was a federal raid. I stepped onto my porch under the guise of watering plants. Agent Coleman stood at Karen's door with 2 agents beside her. Karen's face lit up with her classic fake smile, the one she used while issuing citations about unapproved mailbox paint. It didn't last. Agent Coleman calmly held up her badge and the warrant. She spoke clearly. "Mrs. Whitfield, you are under investigation for tampering with federal mail and interfering with a government operation. We'll need you to come with us." Karen's shriek of disbelief echoed down the block. "I'm the HOA president. I thought it was dangerous. I was trying to protect the neighborhood." Agent Coleman didn't flinch. "The package recorded your every movement. You took it from Mr. Chen's property and opened it without authorization. That's mail theft, ma'am." Neighbors had begun to trickle out ostensibly to check their mail or walk their dogs. By the time Karen was escorted to the SUV, half the cul-de-sac was watching. Her hair was a mess, her pantsuit soaked in sweat. Tom, ever the comedian, called out, "Hey, Karen, I don't think that's in the HOA handbook. Section 12.3, maybe." The crowd chuckled, but mostly they stared in stunned silence. Agent Coleman walked over to me and, in a voice loud enough for all to hear, explained that I had been working with the federal government on a legitimate sting operation. Every package Karen had tracked so obsessively was authorized federal property. By evening, the news had spread faster than Karen's own HOA bulletins. The emergency HOA meeting that night was packed. With Karen absent, the board quickly moved to strip her of her presidency. The vote was unanimous. The second motion, an official apology to me, also unanimous. But Karen's problems were just beginning. She was charged with mail theft up to 5 years in prison and obstruction of a federal operation. Another 3 years. Her lawyer, likely costing her tens of thousands, tried to argue she was acting in civic interest. The judge wasn't buying it. Local news outlets ran the story with headlines like, "HOA president arrested in federal mail sting." Clips of her arrest went viral online, captioned, "Karen versus the feds." Her real estate firm, desperate to avoid scandal, fired her within days under a morality clause. Her bus stop ads became selfie stations tagged with #FederalKaren. When her plea deal finally came, it included 2 years probation, a $50,000 fine, 200 hours of mandatory community service. Ironically, on the topic of mail security and a 10-year ban from serving on any HOA board, at her sentencing, she stood, pale and shaken, no longer the rule-wielding tyrant of Willowbrook. "I let my role go to my head," she admitted. "I violated the law in the name of control." Her $50,000 fine wiped out her savings. Her attorney fees added another $30,000. She was in debt, disgraced, and barred from the one thing she loved most, others. As the judge read the sentence, Karen broke down in sobs that echoed through the courtroom.